Ben, what are we doing?
You know how I made that little Cessna?
Yeah.
I wanted to make a bigger one.
How much bigger?
240%.
That's a lot bigger, Ben.
Yeah, that's a lot bigger.
Flite Crew, please prepare for departure.
So why the Cessna?
When I was a little kid, my grandfather was a flight instructor, and so in his off time, he would take me to the airport and teach me to fly. There's pictures of me with him. I was probably like 6 years old, and he would put a phone book under me and taped 2x4s to the pedals so that I could at least feel what he was doing. He owned a old Cessna 150M, and so over last Thanksgiving, I just got a wild hair in my head. I thought, I want to make a plane for my grandpa. So that's actually where the little Cessna came from. And then as I saw Flite Test messing around with that monster radio, I said, I need to make a bigger Cessna, obviously. So this is my 150 for my grandpa, Big Al. You want to know about my grandfather, Grandpa Al German, or Big Al, as he was known. His relationship with me began before my memory. Shortly after I was born, he got into a car accident. He was hit from behind, actually, while he was walking, and it broke both his knees, putting him into a wheelchair. So he found himself learning to walk again while I was learning to walk for the first time, which began a unique bond between the two of us, coupled with the fact that I was his first grandchild. So after learning how to walk again together, we hung out quite a lot. And aside from learning to fly, one of my other fun memories of my grandpa is having breakfast with him and eating cold cereal out of Pyrex dishes, which are measuring cups, like big measuring cup pitchers. That's what he loved to eat his cereal out of, and we would have cold cereal and cut up bananas in a giant Pyrex dish. Skipping ahead just a few years, around when I was 6, I think, he had his pilot's license and was a flight instructor and had already taught my dad to fly. And clearly I wanted to learn as well, so he would take me up in his Cessna 150 on his spare time or his off time, because he was one of the flight instructors that didn't want to go on to be a regional pilot or a commercial pilot. So he stuck around at the school and became the chief flight instructor sort of by default. So he had some extra flight hours to spare in his schedule. Between instructing the instructors and the rest of the people. So he'd take me up for a couple hours at John Wayne Airport in Southern California, and that began my flight instruction with him. And he would put a phone book under me on the seat, and he taped 2x4s to the rudder pedals so that I could reach and at least feel what he was doing. And I still remember being that, I don't know what age I was, but I certainly remember sitting there with him and feeling the controls and having him remind me, don't grip it too hard, don't fly the airplane too much. You gotta allow the airplane to fly itself too. You just sort of direct it, especially on landing. That was something I definitely remember. He said, Ben, don't try to land the airplane. If you try and land it, it will bounce back up and fly. Specifically with Cessnas, obviously. Just keep flying the airplane. Just keep flying the airplane until it lands, and then it's done flying.
Ready?
Good morning from Flite Fest. We're gonna fly a Cessna because it's nice and calm. Taking off!
So he continued to take me up in his plane, gosh, from the age of probably 6 or so, on through my teens. We eventually graduated from his little 150 to a 152. I think he sold his 150 because he ended up flying all the planes from the school more often anyways. So we graduated into a 150 and then eventually a 172 as I grew, and 2 6-foot men don't really fit too comfortably in a 152 for extended periods. So the bulk of my later training happened in a 172, but I definitely have some fond memories of that old 150, especially because that was also the plane that my father learned to fly in, and my mother flew in as well, N6329 or 7. I'll never forget how when we would park the plane, he'd pull down the taxiway, and as he shut off the motor, he would turn either right or left, depending on which way he was going to back it up, but he would turn and away from the tie-down spot as the engine shut off, and he'd sort of coast to a stop at an angle and hop out, and then go back around to the back end of the tail, the fuselage, and just lean on the tail, with pushing the tail down and lifting the nose up, and not bothering with any kind of tow bar or anything, and just sort of walk the plane back. And it made him so huge to me, because here was this big, to me, giant plane that I'm standing underneath the shade of, and there my grandpa is just sort of leaning on the tail ever so nonchalantly, moving the whole airplane, just with ease. That always blew my mind.
Good afternoon and welcome to Edgewater Airpark. My dad made it out to Flite Fest, and we drove over with Josh, and Shannon actually drove me. Thank you, Shannon. So we're gonna walk across this bridge over here and get set up, and then Josh is going to join us in a few, and we're gonna get Josh on the sticks.
Oh, this is a good one. When we were doing some pattern practice and landing practice, we flew to Long Beach Airport, which is one of the sites where Boeing is located, and the actual site where the C-17 Globemaster III was manufactured and final assembly and flew out of there at Long Beach Airport. So we flew in there, and it just so happened as we were taxiing back, a C-17 was either taking off for a test flight or a delivery flight, I don't know. But there was a C-17 lined up on the long runway to take off. And we were taxiing to cross that runway. And the tower gets on the radio to us and calls out to, Cessna, would you mind holding for the C-17 taking off? And of course, they said it way better and way cooler. But I still remember how my grandpa just ever so coolly got on the radio, clicked on and said, this is Cessna, we'll hold for the heavy. And I'm thinking, heck yeah, we'll hold for the heavy. We're gonna watch a C-17 take off in front of our faces. How awesome is that? But he was super cool. I never really thought about it until reflecting now. My grandpa had so much confidence in me, or he must have, because the way he taught me, he would present me with the material, whether ground or air instruction, and he never tried to hammer it home. You know, he didn't try, or at least I don't remember him trying to over-communicate anything. He would present me the material, or he'd ask me the question, give me the instruction on whatever it was, and then I would either read back or I'd answer his questions, and he'd ask me maybe once, do you understand this? And if I said yes, then he would say, okay, moving on. And I do remember a couple times he seemed maybe a little surprised that I, didn't have more questions. But I don't know, he always just had so much confidence that I felt like, well, he's told me the information, I feel like I understand it, then yeah, let's keep going. I feel like I took that confidence from him that he put into me.
Resurrected.
Just to prove that it is what it is. There's everybody. So who's on there? It's Ben, Josh,
And I think
We're going to try and fly this thing again. We had technical difficulties this first time, but here we go. Yeah, then this guy.
You want me to carry it?
Yeah, let's go.
Now, I don't know if this is a tradition more universal to flight schools around the country, or if this was just something that he did or schools there did. But on solo day, you would go up with your instructor, make a few passes around the pattern, and then land, pull off one of the taxiways, and then the instructor got out and would stand there on the taxiway, or just off the taxiway, and you would leave him there, taxi back, and take off and do your 3 patterns, or your 3 touch and goes for your solo. So I'm not soloing at any old airport around, just the middle of nowhere. I'm soloing at John Wayne Airport in Santa Ana, California, which is busy airspace, busy ground too. So we go around the pattern, I land, pull off the taxiway, and he gets out. Now, I don't know if people in the terminal noticed, but if they were paying attention, it should have been pretty obvious. There was a guy standing just out off the taxiway in the middle of the tarmac, not in an airplane. So it's very apparent to everyone someone is soloing. So I taxi back, and Tower is really helpful, really cool. I never liked being on the radio. I love flying. I could handle the flying part great. I never really enjoyed being on the radio and talking. So I taxi back, get lined up and clearance and take off and do my, I get ready to go. And again, I'm used to an airplane. I'm in a 172, and I'm used to an airplane with 2 6-foot full-size men in it, which has a certain weight and a certain performance. And I didn't think about it ahead of time, but it definitely was apparent to me immediately as I'm rolling down the runway, and the airplane just leaps off the ground because it's got half the payload in it now, just me. So it just leaps off the runway, and at John Wayne, there's 2 parallel runways, left and a right. The left one's shorter, the right one's longer. The longer one's used for the heavies, and the shorter one's used for most general aviation. Sometimes you get to use the long runway. But to stay out of the way of those heavies to your right, on the short runway, you take off and you turn left a little bit to take an early crosswind into the pattern. But also, the left-hand pattern is lower in altitude. It's 850 feet versus 1,000 feet on the right-hand side. And I found myself at 1,000 feet in no time because it just kept going up. So I had to push the nose down and get back down to the left-hand pattern altitude of 850 to stay in the pattern and circle around. That surprised me. That really, I'll never forget that one.
All right, we're gonna let the quad get airborne first.
The what? Oh, buddy. There's an airplane right there.
Face to west. Oh my God. We have to move.
All right, I'm ready whenever you guys are.
Okay.
See your head up in there.
I got him.
Oh, yeah. Good job.
Big Al takes one.
I saw the hit.
Yeah, right there.
Let's tighten them up a little bit.
Trying.
There you go, JT. Keep trying, man.
I could not be lower or slower.
Are you ready?
Every time I was up there, I just have time to sleep.
Yeah, he said he's fine.
I felt that one. That was my other airplane.
Oh!
Good job, Wes.
You guys gotta get tighter. You're gonna get close on a
Oh God!
battery.
That is nice butt.
Oh, man, so sticky. The flight has to come in there. Oh. Are you still in?
Dang it.
I've got one of the...
Come on, guys.
Get it.
Get him. Whoa.
In shadows.
This isn't supposed to be a formation fly. You guys gotta get low. Battery life's gonna end. Ben, you gotta take out the rest of these guys real quick, man, with that thing.
I'll come up here.
Oh, that was great.
I'm trying, guys.
How many are up with me?
4. Oh, close to 4.
3 to quad.
3 to quad. You gotta go like 20 feet up. Stay low. Woo!
Probably is. Probably all.
Oh, no, I had that little warbird.
Okay.
Was he trying to snap the wing?
All right.
But if it happens, it's okay.
Come get me! Come on! Go get her, 22!
That's full stick.
Oh! Yeah! Get it.
Oh! Whoa! I don't know. Prop wash.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to start. Right here. Man.
Oh!
A few moments later.
Yeah, we can call it now if he puts it nose first on the ground.
It's up high, nose in the ground.
Yeah. Go like 100 feet up and just
Here we go.
Here we go!
I can't because it's not on camera. I can't.
It's on camera.
It's dead. One last
You see the wings flex. It just wants to fly.
Don't nosedive it. Don't land it.
Come on.
I don't know. It's still got tons of power.
Oh, do it! Oh, it's so close. Oh, it's gonna snap right away.
There you go!
It was him again? Dude, he won last time we did the combat. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. Wait, again?
Again. It's a different design. That was great.
You weren't trying to miss there. You were actually trying to hit him.
I was.
All
I
right,
was.
all right.
I'm just a bad pilot.
So that was the last combat of Edgewater Memorial Weekend.
Good flying, man.
We put Big Al to rest, so to speak. But yeah, we'll see. I want to see what the battery percentage was at here.
Oh, you gotta test
I gotta check her. Yeah.
Ooh, that's awesome.
So there's half the wing and the fuse.
Don't even feel warm.
The battery's not warm?
It has. It's not.
I'm warmer than the battery, is what he's saying.
It's not warm at all.
What? You thought
It's not even squishy.
What size? It's a 4,000 6 cell.
No, it isn't warm at all.
25C.
Yeah. 13. Oh, yeah, we're right about there.
Butter's fine too. Yeah,
It's so it's under that motor. That's the FT Monster radial, but it's only on like a 13 or 14 inch prop, which is massively under propped for a 6 cell. And that's the 80 amp Monster ESC too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you see what broke that? Do you see what failed?
So what failed?
The strut. The strut right down.
The strut attachment
Yeah.
failed. The wing failed after the strut. That's some good engineering for you.
Yeah. I cannot believe
I can't take credit. I copied Cessna.
Good flying, man.
That was fun. Thanks for letting me fly it one last time.
That was cool.
That was a blast.
He was the first person to show me how when you blow over a piece of paper, holding it up to your mouth, the difference in pressure, how the paper rises. I still remember being fascinated by that and not understanding how if you blow over the top of the paper, it went up. How does that work? Obviously, if you blow under it, it goes up. But how, when you blow over the top of it, it still goes up? And not that he said much, although when he did, it was usually a pretty good dry joke like, well, that's 3 holes in the ground. My love of aviation and all things flying was certainly in my blood, I think, already, from him and my dad and my mom and my other grandpa. But what my grandpa Al specifically gave me was the hands-on, the instruction, the walking me through it, the taking me up in the air and showing me how to do it. He showed me by example. He flew. He let me fly. He let me take the controls. Didn't let me fail catastrophically, obviously, but he would let me mess up and correct and then help me through that and help me figure out what I did wrong. And that's why I wanted to make the little Cessna or the Commuter for him. To remember him, to share a little bit of what he gave me with all of you. And finally, I want to say thank you, Grandpa Al, for all that you taught me, for all that you gave me, which allowed me to pass that on and give it to others. I couldn't have done it without you, Grandpa.
On behalf of the flight crew, thank you for flying with us and have a pleasant stay.
Go that way, straight out. Straight out? A little bit to the right, maybe straight out. Just fly. This way.
This is going to be a cluster.
Somebody
count down on 1, 2, 3.
3.
I'll catch you out of trouble, so just watch yourself.
Where's everybody at? Which one's mine?